The door hissed open, and Commander Viral stepped into the interrogation chamber, her tall, lithe form casting a long shadow under the sterile lights. The room was cold by design, devoid of comfort. Just a single table, 2 chairs, and the human, restrained at the wrists with translucent bind bands that shimmered faintly with psionic dampening fields. He looked up as she entered. Still calm, still silent. Captain Elias Ward, Terran Defense Force, 5th Recon Fleet. The only survivor of the Artemis. Retrieved from the debris field without resistance. He hadn't screamed when pulled from the wreckage. Hadn't flinched when his mind was first invaded. Hadn't broken, even after 47 hours of psychic assault. It made no sense. Human, Viral said, her voice clipped and clinical. Your vessel is gone. Your crew vaporized. Your people outmatched. Yet you persist in the charade of defiance. What? Elias tilted his head slightly, as if genuinely puzzled by the question. His brown eyes were steady. Not blank, not dazed, focused. Alive. Measuring. You've been in my mind, he said, voice level. You tell me. Viral's second eyelids flicked in irritation. Your mind is a labyrinth of noise. Trauma stacked upon trauma. Sensory chaos. Pain normalized. Fear buried so deep it's... She stopped. She wasn't supposed to admit that. Elias smiled. Not wide, just enough to say he noticed. We trained for that, he said softly. Viral leaned forward, letting her tendrils unfurl just slightly, brushing against his aura. Her species communicated through layered telepathy, able to slice through deception with ease. Even the strongest of warriors buckled under Xarn probing. But this human's thoughts were partitioned, like armored vaults. And worse, when she pressed harder, he pushed back. She shifted tactics. An illusion unfurled across the room. The metal walls melted away, replaced by burning cities. Earth sky ripped open by orbital bombardment. Screams echoed, children wailed. A woman appeared, reaching out, blonde, bloodied. His sister, perhaps? You know what this is, Viral said, her voice reverberating inside his skull. We've seen your records. You had a sister. She died in an earlier raid. I can bring her back. Speak to you through her voice. Give you closure. The human's face didn't change. She's dead. She knew what she was dying for. So do I. The illusion collapsed. The burning earth faded. The room snapped back to steel and silence. Viral stepped closer, her voice hardening. Why aren't you afraid, human? For the first time, Elias moved slowly, deliberately. He leaned forward, bringing his face level with hers. There was no rage in his expression, no arrogance, just cold clinical certainty. Because fear is a reaction. I've moved past that. Viral's pulse quickened. Elias continued, eyes boring into hers. We learned a long time ago that panic gets you killed. That fear clouds judgment. That when monsters come, you don't run, you study them. He leaned back again, still staring. You're not the first monsters we've faced. There was something ancient in his voice, something quietly horrifying. Not bravado, not resistance, experience. The room felt smaller. Viral activated the psionic surge panel. A pulse of telepathic energy hit Elias like a hammer, but he didn't even blink. Instead, his eyes rolled back for a second, and then he laughed. Just once. Low. Short. But it echoed in the silence like a gunshot. You think you've broken minds, he said. But you've never seen what happens when one's already been broken and rebuilt into something worse. Her throat tightened. No subject had ever laughed at the surge. You invaded our space, he said, voice quiet again. You thought we'd kneel, that we'd beg. But you didn't understand the price we already paid to survive our own history. He raised his eyes and spoke the words that chilled her blood. We are the thing that comes after fear. Elias sat alone once more. The room returned to its sterile quiet, the lights humming softly overhead. He closed his eyes, the ghost of a smile still lingering on his lips. They thought they had him contained, thought he was here by accident. Let them. Let all unfold. Inside his mind, behind walls they couldn't breach, he began to remember. Not with fear, but with focus. Tharsis Training Complex, Mars. 15 years ago. A boy stood waist-deep in freezing mud, his breath fogging the air as electric lashes cracked nearby. Behind him, screaming. Ahead of him, silence. "Move, Cadet Ward!" barked the instructor from above the trench line. He was 11, too small to fight, too stubborn to die. His legs ached. Blood ran from his ears, pressure training, subsonic warfare drills. But he moved. Pain was a tool. Fear was a distraction. And every distraction cost lives. The Reaper Division didn't train soldiers. They forged weapons, psychological ones. Kids taken from war-torn colonies, survivors of orbital famines and plague zones. Children who'd already faced hell and learned to keep walking. Elias had been one of the best. Not the fastest, not the strongest, but the one who never broke. Not when buried alive in the simulation pits. Not when forced to relive loved ones' deaths for days straight. Not when the psychic hounds tore through his constructed memoriscape, looking for guilt. He didn't fight fear. He made peace with it, and then he moved past it. Back in the cell, orbital station, Elias opened his eyes. They were watching. Always. Cameras in the walls. Psionic tracers in the air. He let them watch. Across the galaxy, humanity had been underestimated for centuries. The Xarn weren't the first. They would not be the last. What aliens didn't understand was that humans were not stable creatures. They were adaptable, volatile, unpredictable in ways logic-driven species couldn't comprehend. The average Terran could handle chaos as a natural part of life. But soldiers like Elias? They didn't just endure chaos. They became it. Psychological warfare briefing, Lunar Command. 5 years ago. "You will be captured," General Crane said, pacing in front of a room full of Reapers. "You will not resist. You will go silent. And when you reach the enemy's heart," he turned, eyes cold, "you will open the door." Elias remembered nodding, already accepting the mission. He had been chosen not for his strength, but because he could lie without lying. He could fold himself into a role and live there. Let his captors think they had power. Let them think he was broken. Until the moment it mattered. Until the moment the knife was close enough. Now, Viral hadn't returned yet. That meant they were meeting, debating, whispering in their high alien voices, full of confusion and concern. She hadn't told them the truth, not yet, but she would. She couldn't help it. He'd planted seeds in her mind with every word. Because the truth was simple. He wasn't the one who should be afraid. They were. Elias shifted slightly, testing the bind band again. Still active. Still humming. Didn't matter. He didn't need to move. Didn't need a weapon. Because the real battlefield wasn't in the room. It was in the minds of everyone who came near him. And the longer they stayed, the deeper his presence sank. The Dominion thought of fear as a tool. They wielded it like a knife. But humans? Humans had bathed in it, drowned in it, made homes inside nightmares. He remembered whispering once, during training, if you stare into the void long enough, it starts to whisper back. And some of them whispered first. The door hissed. Viral stepped in, slower this time, guarded, her posture stiff. "You did something," she said, to the psychics. 3 of them are unresponsive. One is babbling in clicks and whistles. Elias shrugged. "Maybe you opened a door you couldn't close. You're a liability." "No," he said calmly. "I'm a message." She narrowed her eyes. "To whom?" He smiled, small and knowing. To everyone who thought fear was the end of the conversation. Viral's hands trembled as she reviewed the surveillance footage. The cameras inside Elias Ward's cell showed no abnormal activity, no movement, no physical escape. And yet, the symptoms were spreading. Not physically, mentally. 3 telepaths catatonic. One repeating Earth nursery rhymes. Another in quarantine after attempting to chew off her own fingers. A Xarn security officer, after a brief walk past the observation window, had torn out his own eye, screaming about the humans staring from inside. It was impossible, unprecedented, and it was all coming from the same silent figure sitting perfectly still in a chair at the center of it all. Xarn High Council Room, Orbital Core. "They've weaponized their minds," growled High Warden Call, her voice reverberating through the chamber. "This is psychic contamination. No species has ever turned fear into an infectious concept. Viral stood at the center of the council floor, trying to keep her expression neutral. It's not just contamination. It's intention. Captain Ward isn't leaking madness. He's guiding it, shaping it. Another elder hissed. We are the masters of mental warfare. You expect us to believe a primate. He's not just a soldier, Viral interrupted. He's trained to resist psionics. But more than that, he's built his identity around survival in the face of total collapse. He uses his trauma like a scalpel. If you so much as listen to him long enough, he starts cutting. Call leaned forward, eyes narrowing. What do you suggest? Viral hesitated. Then, we should terminate him immediately. Silence fell, and then the lights flickered. For 3 seconds. Back in the chamber, Elias opened his eyes and whispered, too late. The first system failure occurred in the ship's psionic dampeners. A surge overloaded the regulators, dropping the protective field around the psychic ward. Monitors screamed. Lights dimmed. But when guards stormed in, nothing had changed. Elias was still sitting, still bound, still smiling. Command center, 10 minutes later. Containment breach, the AI announced flatly. Security lockdown disabled. Tier 3 systems reverting. Impossible, Viral hissed. He's not connected to any network. No, but he is, someone whispered behind her, horror blooming in their voice. They turned toward the main screen. A diagram of the psychic data lattice was shifting, warping around Elias's location. The psionic residue from his interviews, the mind print he'd left on telepaths, had begun replicating like a virus. Not digital, not biological, conceptual, a meme with teeth, and it was eating into the station's mind-link systems. Inside the chamber, a faint hum rose as Elias exhaled. He was no longer focusing on Viral. He was watching the Xarn Empire come apart. You tried to weaponize fear, he said aloud. But humans learned something long ago. Fear isn't a weapon. He looked up, as if addressing invisible witnesses. It's a language. The walls began to shudder. Xarn Fleet Command, deep orbit. All ships report in. Is this a coordinated Earth attack? No enemy vessels on scan, wait. Internal uplink. The prison station is broadcasting something. Is it a distress call? No, sir. It's a signal. A loop of images, sounds, and, strangely, emotions. Footage of ruined Terran cities, smiling children building shelters out of rubble, laughter in bomb craters, soldiers bleeding out while singing lullabies to the dying. The Xarn communications officers who saw it began to shake. Sweat dripped from scaled foreheads. One whispered, "Why aren't they afraid?" The answer came, unbidden, from the signal itself. Because they know fear is just the beginning. Back in the cell, Viral stumbled in, gasping. You've infected our systems. Our minds. How? Elias stood. The bind bands had failed. He looked at her, unhurried. We didn't come to you in peace. We came to remind you that peace was never your decision to make. You're alone. No, he said, his voice like steel. I'm the first. He turned to face the corner of the cell, where a small, red light blinked. A transmission relay. It had been rerouted. Hijacked. Activated. Phase 1 complete, Elias whispered. Message sent. Far beyond the edge of known, Xarn-controlled space, dark forms stirred in the void. Human ships, silent as tombs, emerged from fold space, sleek, black, angular monsters designed for psychological dominance as much as warfare. No insignias, no transmissions, no mercy. Each vessel carried an emblem known only within Terran military code. The Reapers have landed. Xarn High Command, 41 minutes after Elias's transmission. They're not responding, Viral snapped, pacing furiously. They're not hailing, not negotiating, just watching. Fleet Admiral Skale's skin had paled to an ashen gray. How did they arrive so fast? We control all known jump routes. They didn't use your routes. Elias's voice echoed through the main chamber, though he was nowhere near the comms. We never needed your maps, he added. We just needed a door. Viral's breath caught in her throat. Elias's voice had come from inside the station's primary AI hub. How are you transmitting from? And then she realized he wasn't transmitting. He was already there, 2 hours earlier, in the cell. The moment the transmission relay blinked red, Elias shifted his breathing, eyes distant, whispering old Reaper activation codes in a language only a Terran AI would recognize. His body had been scanned, probed, prodded, and none of the Xarn realized the black nanolattice in his blood wasn't armor. It was a carrier. Inside Elias flowed a virus engineered by Earth's brightest minds, not to destroy machines, but to infect minds, starting with the interface layers the Xarn built into their systems. Psychic interfaces. Their pride. Their legacy. Their weakness. Now, the Xarn homeworld skies were flickering with fire. One by one, their defense satellites shut down, hijacked by their own command systems. Xarn commanders tried to override orders, but the interfaces pulsed with Terran war chants and memories of mass extinction. The worst part? There was no attack yet, just the waiting. That was the message. Elias hadn't come to fight. He came to make them remember what fear truly was. Viral, docking control deck. She stood frozen, watching the data feed scroll. The Terran ships still hadn't fired. "Why aren't they attacking?" she asked aloud. A voice from behind her answered, soft, calm, unhurried. "Because they want you to imagine what happens next." She turned. Elias stood there, unarmed, unhindered, free. The guards behind him didn't move. They were staring blankly. One wept softly. Viral backed away. "You can't win this way. You're outnumbered, outgunned." Elias tilted his head. "That's what the last Empire said, right before they drowned in the dark." Her voice shook. "What are you?" He stepped forward, gaze sharp as razors. "The part of your story you thought would never come." He leaned in, whispering what would become a death sentence for her species. Retribution. Xarn outer defense perimeter, seconds later. One of the human ships powered up. A single, surgical kinetic lance fired. No blast, no fireball. Just velocity. A Xarn command cruiser blinked out of existence mid-sentence. Silence followed, until a Terran broadcast filled every Xarn channel. This was a courtesy shot. "Next time, we won't aim for your ships. We'll aim for your children's memories. You taught fear. We became it." Orbit, the final minutes. Viral stared through the main viewport. Her species' homeworld, a distant globe, now shrouded in defensive static and smoke. The system was in chaos. Panic had set in not because of loss, but because of anticipation. Every breath was now borrowed. She turned one last time to Elias. "Why didn't we see it?" He met her eyes, unblinking. "Because you thought we were prey." He took a step toward the airlock. "And we were." Another step. But evolution doesn't stop at fear. He placed a hand on the control panel. The outer doors opened, bathing the deck in starlight and silence. He looked back. "Now run."